G'day guys, welcome back. I'm Todd, this is Toxic Garage Customs and you're standing in the sun with me. It's an absolutely beautiful spring day. It's meant to get to about 39 degrees Celsius today, so I'm getting this out of the way early and then I'm going to sit in air conditioning. But what have I been doing? I've been working on FrankenInter, of course, because that's what I do. So let's have a bit of a look and then I'll let you watch the video. So this is as he stands. So what you're going to see in this video is that I've been doing a heap of work on the bodywork. What you're not going to see in this video is I've also started doing a bit of work on my demister, and I've started preparing for a bit of work with my electric door windows. Electric door windows. That's right, isn't it? Yeah. So that's in future videos. This video is about this, but there's also one other little thing that occurred during the production of this video, and that's that I had my first engineering inspection. It went well. There's a little bit of remediation work that I need to do. So I suggest that you grab a cool adult beverage, comfy chair, put your feet up, and check out what I've been doing to the body and what my engineer had to say and what little repairs he's got me to do. And I will catch you at the end of the video. I'm open to opinions. See you then. I've started sanding the body work back after doing that work on the window frames, and just to start off, I'm using a really good respirator because I use my lungs quite a bit, so I'd like to keep using them. And another thing, when I'm sanding, all the stuff I'm sanding off, I try and vacuum up as much of it as I can. I've got this beautiful looking vacuum cleaner here, which quite frankly sounds like it's got respiratory issues because of sucking stuff like this up, but I would prefer to replace it and my lungs. What I've been doing, I started on the cowl area here, and I'm rubbing it down with the biggest block I can at any point in time in a crosshatch fashion. And when it comes to areas like this, I'm not sanding along that way. I'm coming down across the curve because what I'm not trying to do is sand lines into it. I'm trying to shape it up as best I can. But what I'm looking for is high and low spots. Now this I've gone a little step further, so that's not a good example, but you can see this is a high spot. So this is lead under here. This had lead in here and I had to take a bit of it out when I was doing some work. So there'll be some filler in here to smooth that out. But if we have a look on the roof, if you were here a couple of videos ago, when I first started this bodywork, there was some dents in the roof, and I went through and I hammer and dollied, sort of planished out the dents. There was sort of a large dent and some other dents. And this is what you can see. So I've gone through and sanded off the epoxy primer, and in some spots I've gone to bare metal, so that's a high spot, but you can distinctly see the low spots. Low spots I can fill, high spots you've got to fill up to or bang them down. Now this one's not an issue because it's on a peak here and I can work with that. But through here, that's a little bit of a high spot just there, that spot right there. So what I'm going to do is quite literally just with a hammer, just with a pointed hammer, panel beating hammer, I'm just going to dent that down a little bit. And that way I can fill it rather than have to fill the entire roof up to that height. So you can see all of the highs and lows there. The highs that are good where I've been able to sand the epoxy back and I haven't hit bare metal. The lows are the shiny bits. And looking at the back of the roof here, I've only done half, so I haven't done that half yet, done this half. It's pretty obvious where the low spots are. As I said, low spots I can live with. High spots I just need to do something about. So slightly high there, that's it really. So overall, a thin skim of body filler over this whole roof is what's going to be happening. I am not going to try and take this out anymore. When I sand over here, I'm pretty sure I'm going to find some high spots there, right there. Seems to be pushed up. You might be able to see it. So I'm probably going to have to bang those down. When I'm sanding, I'm intentionally not trying to sand these shiny spots out because I want to see what I'm working with. And then once I've got a good idea, which I'm getting a pretty good idea, then I will go through and I'm going to have to sand these down so that my body filler can stick to it, because I need tooth. I need to key it in, give it some texture. So I will be sanding all of these down, but at this point in time, it's showing me, it's telling me the story, telling me what I need to do. And when I'm looking across the back of the cab here, it's pretty obvious. So I knew there was a dent through here, and it actually continues down, and you can see all those low spots, and that's good. You can see this part of the roof sits out slightly further than that because I've been sanding over that surface. I may fill that, or I may just let that go. And this, another dent, and again it carries down through there. So that's good. It shows me where I'm working, what I'm looking for. And so I don't overwhelm myself. I'm not going to be sanding the whole cab back at the same time. I'm just doing down to this body line because it seems like a really good place to work to. That way I can get all of the top sanded. I'll put some body filler on it. I can start sanding that. And that's going to be a multi-stage process. I'm not one of those people that can put one coat on sand and it's perfect. It'll take me many more coats than that, to be honest. But time is not a problem. So I'll chip away at it and chunk at it. I mentioned across the front here. So I sanded this, and what I can tell you is it's got very slight dents, a number of them throughout this area. And to me, the best way for me to deal with that is I'm going to literally go from here across to there, from here up to there with a skim of body filler and sand it down. And what I'm going to do, I'm going to keep sanding it until black starts coming through. And then I know that that will be my high spot. So again, using as large a sanding pad that I can across any area at any time, so that it will leave the lows and sand the highs. And I'll do that multiple times, and we will get a good surface. But what I've done here is a good example of what will happen on the roof. I found the lows, I identified what was going on, then I decided I'm going to skim the whole thing. So I then went through and individually sanded those low spots. I'll skim it and then I'll sand it as I just explained. While I'm doing this, I'm also going to go through and put a skim on the window surround like I've explained previously. And I'm also going to build this corner out a little bit. Not excessive, just a bit. And the same around here. When it comes to things like this body line and other areas where I don't want body filler to get in, so I have to remove it later, I'm going to very carefully put some masking tape in areas like this so that I can body fill to it if I need to, and then remove the tape and not have to try and get it out of here later because it's already a nice sharp line. Why mess with it? And eventually I will move around to areas like the firewall and the door jambs and the dash and so on. Not ready for the dash. Door jambs, not really ready for for some of it because I've still got to do my burst-proof latches. And firewall, I'm pretty much close. I can start doing that. But what I am going to do in these areas where I have patched things in, so these depression areas where I've welded things in, I'll put a little bit of fiberglass filler over those just to fill any pinholes. And there will be some areas on the door jambs and so on where I'll take care of that sort of stuff as well, where I've had to do rust repairs. Any area that I'm going to be working on today is sanded back, and what I did after I blocked it all off as I was showing you, I then went through and hand sanded all of those low spots. I'm not worried about whether that's the right way to sand something or not, and the reason being is that I'm going to be lathering this with body filler, and there's going to be high build primer and so on. So all I was doing before was identifying the high and low spots. I did go through with my pointed hammer and just bang down some spots. So there's not very many high spots that I need to worry about, or if there is, they're very, very slight. And as I said, I've sanded everything down. I've got some sand through areas, and there's two schools of thought. Body filler over primer, over epoxy, absolutely must, or body filler over bare metal is okay. I like putting my body filler over primer because I believe it gives it extra protection, but I'm not concerned about putting body filler over a few sand through spots. I was just masking a couple of areas just to prevent, getting body filler in places I don't want it, as I explained. And I was just about to do this seam up here where the roof joins the body. And as I said, it's pretty close, but there's tiny little differences between it. So I was having two thoughts. I can either body fill up to it and get it so it's all good, or I can leave it as it is, or what I've decided I'm going to do. I'm going to fill this joint with fiberglass filler because it's strong, it's waterproof, and it'll clean it up. It'll be a little bit of extra work, but it means that I can put that in and I can just sand this plane all as one, and I can fill this little depression here at the same time. I don't have to worry about trying to fiddle around with things like that separately. So I can't see any reason not to do that. The two panels are fixed together. They're not going to move independently to each other, so I can't see any reason why it's going to crack. And while I don't hate that sort of body line, I think it'll just look cleaner without it. So that's what I'm doing. And exactly 3 Dire Straits songs later, which are not short songs, this is what I've done. I've made a mess of everything. But I've filled it with fiberglass. And it's a really warm day here today, so it's gone off pretty much straight away. I'm going to grab something to eat, come back, sand it, and then I can go straight over the top of that with body filler. I like that idea. I've made a start on the body filler. So I've done that rear pillar, and as you can see, started doing some of the roof, so I've only done half of it so far. Sanding it away, and I've smeared some in with my finger around the areas around the window here. And that's about it really. So we'll continue on. Fair bit of body filler to go on, fair bit of sanding to be done. And when that starts going dry on my plate, I just leave the leftover stuff, use the leftover stuff just to fill in some of these holes, because it's less important if it gets a little bit of few holes in it or whatever. I can go over it again later, because the body is the most important part, and rather than waste. While we're on the topic of the body filler, this is what I'm using. Evercoat Rage Ultra. I've never used this before, and I have to say, this stuff is good. I really like this. I believe there's a Rage Gold as well, which I believe is even better for your final coats. I like this stuff. It's a real improvement to what I've used in the past. I've now gone through and put some body filler on this side of the roof also, and you'll say, where is it? Because what I've done, I put on a reasonably good smear. It's probably about 3 or 4 mil thick over most of this area, back to about here and down to about there. I let that dry, and then I went over it with my D8 dual action sander with 80 grit on it, just to take some lumps and bumps off. And then I very quickly ran one of my sanding blocks over it with 80 grit. It's nowhere near ready. Back here, I've done the same thing, but I haven't put any of my Bodyworks Imperfection Sanding Guide coat on it, which is a dust, and I'll show you that in a moment. The idea of it is that I apply it, it's just a powder, apply it with this applicator, and then go through and sand the area in a good fashion. I can see, like I know, I'm nowhere near close here, I'm doing this for your purpose. So I apply this like this, and the idea is that if I sand it, if there's a high spot, it'll come down and I'll be able to see body filler. Or if I go right the way through, I'll be able to see my primer underneath it. And if there's a low spot, then it'll remain black. Now, I would be wearing a mask when I'm doing this if I was off camera, but it's a bit hard to talk. So what I'm going to do is just go through and sand this. And as I said, I'm nowhere near finished with this, so there will be spots straight away. But what I'm looking for is sanding it off and seeing dark spots that remain. And pretty much straight away you can see some areas that are showing up where there's a line in the actual, where I've sanded it between the body filler lines. these high spots here, or low spots I should say, and there's some high spots as well. There is a line through here. What I am going to do probably pretty soon is I'm going to put a masking tape line down there and work across from one side to the other. It really goes through here to about here and then blends off, but I'm going to try and make it nice and sharp right the way through there and then blend it off. With my body filler as well, around areas like the window frames and so on, where the body filler's oozed over, I'm not trying to shape it up at the moment because low spots keep sinking, the body filler keeps going in there and it droops away. So I'm just leaving the overfill there so that when I come to shape the edges a bit, I've got plenty of product to sand away rather than having to keep topping it up. Once I hit metal, I'm not going to keep sanding in that area because what will happen is the metal's not going to go down as fast as anything else is. These will remain as high spots and I'll just keep sanding and I'll sand these into low spots. So this is where I'm stopping in that area there. And if that's high, I don't want to get it all good here and then have it come up like that. So I've got to blend that out. And we're talking microscopic here, but it will show up if I don't get it right. Never let it be said that body work is fast or clean, but it's rewarding. So I've sanded all that off and now it's pretty evident the spots that I need to address. These spots here are actually high spots, that's the primer, and then things like this line and some other areas and so on that I can see more clearly than you are low spots. So I can continue along there and I will put body filler on the spots that are needed and not the spots that aren't needed. And the same is evident across the back here. So you can see there was a dent there, so I've started filling it. This is still a low spot. There was a dent there, started filling it. Need to do a little bit of work here. Same here. This is where there was a dent. This is where there was a dent. Just gradually building it up and then sanding it down. And now you can see through here, there's a little dent there, and bit by bit, layer by layer, I'll go through and what I see should end up as being zero. And then I can move on with other sections. The good thing is that this was the worst part of the cab. I'm not sure about the other panels, but this was the worst part of the cab. And that's because the roof had dents in it. It had been caved in, or not caved in, it had been dented. And I could only get it so good. I'm not actually a body man. So yeah, I'm doing to the best of my ability, but I'm happy with the way it's coming up. It's not like it's got 3 inches of body filler on it. So I'll keep moving along. And as I said, I'll just keep moving around panels as I go. But I am taking some time to finally sand in around some of the areas that I don't think I need to put any more fill in, like the window surround and so on. I've got this groove in the middle here starting to shape up. Well, I reckon I'm about 4 or 5 days into the body work that you're about to see. And the reason I don't know exactly is that it's been about a week since I've been on the truck, because I've been doing other things. So I've been on and off. So I think it's 4 or 5 days, thereabouts. It's a long time. I did say earlier that I'm not quick at bodywork. I'm certainly not a master at it, but what I do aim for is good quality. So let's have a look where I'm up to. So once again, as I said, still working on the same sections. You can see I've got some body filler in some of the areas there. I've been working on this part and the roof, down the pillars and across the back. And I'm very happy with the way it's coming up. And I'm in the fine tuning stages. And that's, again, I'm only working down to this line at this stage. I'm not sure about the mudguards on the bonnet, but this is the worst part of the cab. The rest of it is okay, as in I can deal with it more easily, I believe. Let's have a look. So what you can see here is a patchwork, and I've ended up having to put a reasonable amount, and when I say that, like maybe 3 or 4 mil through the middle, because it had a little bit of this. There was a factory seam going through here, which you may remember. Well, there was a distinct change in height there, and then with those other dents and so on. So I was playing around with patches, and then I've ended up doing quite a bit, and I think I'm on the final throes of that. Same sort of thing down here, nearly there. I've spent quite a long time on these corner areas, shaping those up. And the same at the back here. I'm really happy with the way they're coming up. So there was not only little dents and things everywhere, but no panels really aligned absolutely perfectly. And one of the things I'm talking about is where I decided to fill the join between the roof and the pillar. What I didn't realize was that this is quite flat, and then it's got a curve, but it's sort of got a point to it. And I've been trying to play around to try and make it so it's less sharp. It sort of reminds me of the eagle's head off the Muppets, the newsreader. If that means something to you. So where that line is, it sort of comes up and then it sharpens off a bit. So I've been trying to soften it. So what I've done here is put a couple of pieces of masking tape just so that I can get a line to work to, and I'm just calling that my line to try and create a bit of a sharp edge there that I'll sand out, but so that I can at least have one line that's going through, and I haven't made it perfectly flat, I've made it a bit curved. And what I mean by that is there's sort of lumps and bumps throughout the roof. It's sort of a bit like a 50-cent piece, but not as exaggerated. And that's through a combination of the dents, but also just the way it was made. And it wasn't obvious until I started sanding it. And where the roof came down and joined through here, it came down, it was that lumpy bumpy sort of thing, but also where the window is, it curved in quite a bit, the piece of metal, and then it sort of dipped in areas and so on. So I'm doing my best to try and make it so that it's got as few waves as possible, because it was sort of, all the lines were twisted everywhere. And once again, not through damage, just through the way it was manufactured. And on this side of the roof, in the final throws, there's a hollow through here. So I've sanded all of this down now with 180 grit. I would have liked to do it with 140, but I've used 180 to try and feather the edges out and also take out the sanding marks from the 80 grit. And then I've re-sanded some areas after I've done that. And the reason being is I sanded it off and found that this was a low, this was a low. There's some scratch marks in there. There's a few lows here and there. So and you can see that by the color. So I've sanded it back up with 80 grit, and I'm going to put a skim coat across this area, So some big areas, but it'll be very thin because it's minimal. Just when I was sanding it, I could tell that I'd have to push down really hard to sand it out, and that wasn't what I was after. I need the sandpaper to do the work. So I'm going to put some filler on those, sand them up, get them down to 180, And then I'm hoping that all of this area that I've just shown you is done then, because it's taken a really long time and I've still got the rest of the truck to do. What you've just seen me doing is masking this up, and might seem a bit ridiculous to mask it up, but to explain, I've done what's called a soft edge. So I got the masking tape and I stuck it to the cab and folded it over so that it's not a sharp line, and then I've stuck my tape to it, and my paper to the tape I should say. And the reason I'm doing that is I've still got to do bodywork on all of the lower part of this, but it's already an epoxy primer. And what I don't want is when I paint this in epoxy primer, which I'm about to shortly do, I don't want the overspray and the drift and everything to stick on top of the existing, because it won't have a good bond. So potentially later on my paint could peel off. So I've just roughly masked it, and I've done the same thing here, just a soft edge. So this is just masking tape, so I can just paint into here. If a bit of drift comes across, it's not the end of the world, but I don't want to intentionally paint those areas. So I'm going to go through, paint everything that you can see that's in primer, including these areas. This here, I'm not going to soft edge that, I'm just going to fade it out. So I'll just come across to here, and I'll come across to here. I could mask it, but I'm really not going to. It's the back of the firewall, and I think I can work with my spray gun pretty well there. The same as down here. I'm not going to do that because I can just come in from this angle and should be fine. There's still work to be done to this. So this is, I just want to get all this into primer so that it protects it, doesn't absorb moisture, stops it flash rusting, all that sort of stuff. So it seems like a good time to do it. And there we have it. So I've got 3 coats over most of it, 2 coats over some bits, only because I ran out and I figured 2 coats will do for the moment, because all I really was trying to do was seal it up. And to repeat myself many times, there's still plenty of work to do to this. And I can see imperfections. You can see different textures there where the body filler has absorbed primer, whereas there was already primer in other spots. So the body filler absorbs it in, and that's fine. That's what seals it up. So I'm really happy to have this at this stage. Once again, I know that there's imperfections that I need to sort, but it's at a good stage. So I've actually got my engineer coming, it's Monday at the moment, coming on Friday to have a first inspection. So it'll be good. Not that he really needs to look at my body work, but good impressions, all that sort of stuff. So just as a point, I always make sure to clean my gun out thoroughly. I pull the whole thing apart, give it a good clean, because really I can't expect to get anything of any quality coming out of the gun if the gun is not clean. So that is that. Well, I've started doing the body work below the band just there. So that's what we started with. And this is where I'm up to. Sorry, when I say the body work, the sanding to see what body work I need. So you can see what I've done there. Basically, the lighter bits, that's where it's been sanded. Low spots, high spots where metal's coming through, that's when I stop sanding. And distinctly low spots, so we know there was a dent through there that I fixed. You can see coming down here, and then down the bottom here, it seems that where the floor joins in, it just sort of caves in a little bit. And I'm talking minor. Things like this, it's very tempting to sand them out. I probably won't feel that. I'm probably going to go down the path of hoping that my high build filler primer just before paint will fix that. Things like this, it's debatable, but definitely a dent here. I'll try and bang out what I can, but what I can't is going to be filled. Now the reality is the tray is going to be here somewhere, wherever, I'm not sure. So this will be below the tray. So things like this line here, it comes out this way a bit. I'm not going to fill this whole panel. I'm pretty sure I'm not going to fill this whole panel from there up to there so that I can fill this in. I will put some fill in there, but I don't think I need to work out to this line here because at the end of the day, it's right down the bottom and I think I can make it work, but we'll see. You can see there's little dents here and so on. Little dent up here. Overall, it's very good, as is the whole thing. So I'm going to put you on the stand and let's just have a look to see what appears over here. Now we do know that there was a dent down there and we do know that there was a dent equally on the other side there. So we'll see what comes up, but I'll show you how I'm finding that. Well, I reckon that is not too bad for a 73-year-old rear end. To give you an idea, Cheryl Ladd, Jacqueline Bissett, Sher, all in their 70s. I don't know, is their rear ends as good as this rear end? So you can see the obvious areas that needs doing, but I'll tell you what, that's pretty good. It's certainly a lot less work than what up there was, so that's a good thing. So there's some high spots and low spots, same thing. High spots, I'll fill to them or I'll very carefully tap them down so that I can fill them as well. But no surprise, dent through there, dent through there. Down the bottom here, I rust repaired that. I was expecting something there. It's a little bit dinged in there. I think I had to panel beat that, that's what it was all twisted around. A little bit over here. Little bits, little bits, little bits. A little bit more there. And there's a couple of deeper dings over here, but again, nothing particularly serious. So down here, we've got, there's like an actual dent in there that's probably 10, 15 mil deep. But overall, pretty impressed. Again, I did a rust repair down there. Wasn't surprised. Excellent. Doesn't look too bad, two-tone. Well, it's been a minute, but I've been working away on this body. It's getting very close. I've nearly finished this entire bottom area, which is great. Just working my way around. Got a bit more to do here. But overall, looking pretty good. With all this white dust on the floor here, I feel a little bit like Scarface. And if you know, you know. And I got one final little bit of rust that I found just here. So I've just made up a little patch. I've scabbled it out, taken the flaky stuff off, put rust converter there, made a little patch and weld through primed it. Sometime later, I welded that patch in, put fiberglass over it, and then I've done some body filler there. And I've also gone through the top of the cab, the first part that I did, so from this line up, I've now sanded back with 120 grit and then followed it through with 240 grit, and it's looking really good. There's some tiny little imperfections that I need to fix, but you can see there where I've sanded to the body filler, and in a couple of places I've hit metal, but overall we're looking pretty good. And down the bottom there, it is all completely finished. So up the top, had epoxy primer, body filler, epoxy primer, and now it's been sanded down with 240. And down the bottom, epoxy primer, body filler, and it's been sanded down with 120. It is ready for another coat of epoxy. And up the top there, I theoretically am ready for high build primer, 2-pack high build primer, sandable primer. I need to just check the technical data sheet about I know I can go over small patches of bare metal with it. I just need to check to see if I can go over small patches of body filler with it. If not, then I may just need to go around, just spot touch up some areas with epoxy primer, carefully sand them without sanding through again, and then be ready for my 2-pack primer filler. In this area here on the inner guards, the mud guards actually come around this line here. So none of this gets seen. It's, I guess, the inner guard. So I've feathered the body filler out here, but I haven't taken a great amount of care. There's dents and so on here with rust repairs, and I'm not in the slightest bit concerned because I'm going to be covering that all with a textured stone guard underneath the guard. So underneath the surface of the guard and also this area and the floor pan. It'll, I guess, cover little things like that, but also it gives a bit of a sound deadening effect. And particularly with things like the mud guards, if a stone gets thrown up from underneath, then it won't come up, well, it'll have less chance of coming up and denting the surface outward by putting a textured coating there to try and absorb stones and so on. What I've been doing to just limit how much work I need to do, I just made up a template of the mudguards. I just laid it over the mudguards. I lined those 2 bolt holes up, put that there, and I've just been using a pencil just to draw that on, and it's reversible. So I've been doing the same thing on this side also, where I just get it in place. Where's place? Get it in place and draw a line so that I can blend right the way out to anything that matters and then just fade it off into stuff that doesn't. So once again, looking absolutely fantastic. I think I'll do something different next time, as in the next job. As far as what I do next, I like to bounce around. So the reason I've got the top of the cab done to the stage that it's at is because it needs to get there at some point. The bottom, the same. I've got mudguards and bonnets and so on to do, and they're all at different stages. So if I get sick of one thing, I can go to the other and so on. But I do try and make it so that if I'm going to get my spray gun dirty, then I'll try and get it dirty for a good couple of jobs rather than just get the whole thing dirty, spend 45 minutes cleaning it for 5 minutes of spraying. That I need to do next, or need to still do. I still need to research to find out whether I need to do that. I need to go through and just do a little bit of body filler around the door opening where I've done rust repairs and just where it's not very pretty anyway. I'm not going crazy with it. Got to make my demister vents and then put those in. I could buy them, I'm going to make them because that's what I want to do. No other reason, that's just what I want to do. I still need to purchase some windscreen wipers, so it might seem going forward to go backwards, but this hole is probably not going to be needed. And I need to put some new holes in for my wipers. I haven't got my wipers yet, so I haven't done that. So I know that I'm going to be cutting holes in this prepared body surface and so on. So I'll obviously get that done before I get too far into the paint stage. But even if it's in primer and I've got to go backwards a few steps, I can live with that. I've got to do things like sand up the firewall here to get it to the next stage. It's not going to have the amount of preparation that this is. This will be sanded, it'll be painted. I've got to prepare this vent, get it ready so that it's at the same stage. All the little unbolt pieces. So there's a million jobs to do yet. I just need to try and keep myself interested. Had my engineer come today to check out FrankenInter so I could show him the progress of where I'm up to so far. And very short list of very minor things. Other than that, he doesn't need to see the project until he said it's about 95% complete, just so he can give me the final little list of little things that there might be to go from there. But otherwise, big tick of approval to continue on. Let's have a look at the little things that I do need to take care of. So in no particular order, but what I have here is, this is the subframe that goes between the Holden chassis and the International cab. So my mounting point's here and at the front there onto the cab. Just here, this comes through, and this is where the Holden chassis normally gets triangulated by the cab. So there's some mounts that come off here that go onto the back of the cab on a 1-tonner, Holden 1-tonner, and the cab itself becomes part of the triangular bracing to strengthen this area here. He was happy with my subframe and everything, but he did suggest with this here, this point here is the only point of weakness that he could see. And, well, the wind's just come up. He'd like to see some gusseting going from this piece down forward here somewhere, and for me to extend these plates out through. So these plates here, I'll continue them through. He wanted to see them underneath this, because essentially this from here to here is the weakest part of the subframe, in his opinion. So going to extend these out. I've got those on both sides, and then I'll create some sort of triangular gusseting to go from here down to the other side of this. So that's no biggie. There's a little bit of clearance that I need to take care of for the back of the cab to be able to achieve that, because those brackets come right up there. So that part where it triangulates comes right up there, and it is below the tray. So I've got very minimal clearance to put my gusseting through here. So I'll have to try and work it out. I'm not really sure. I may have to notch a little bit out of here. I won't be able to really work that out until I get the cab back on the chassis. So that's a later situation. Inside here, where my seats mount, so I've got mounting point here, mounting points here, so the bracketry for the seat comes in, goes down the back there, and then comes through here. And previously, I'd made these little plates up, just basically to spread the love a little bit. Now, this is actually from the other side, but they go below there, so it comes up through there like that, and then the whole lines up, and I've got a captive nut there. All he suggested was that on these, I just put a little lip return around the side there, just to give it some fold strength. So I guess no different to the way this piece of steel here is folded, just to give it some extra strength. So while the steel I'm using here is overkill, that's what I've got. It's 20 mil wide. He said 10 mil would be fine, but that's okay. And it only really needs to be on the two sides that are sort of closest to the nut there, because there's a bit of steel strength here. So I'm just making this up. I haven't finished bending it yet, but just sort of shaping it up, bending it. That's got to go like that, and then bend around there. And this is one that I prepared earlier. So this is the one from the side we were just looking at. So literally just put that on there. So that goes under there. And I think it's obvious to see that that's substantially stronger. I've still got the captive nut there. So it's got all the flux core smoke and everything, but that's really strong. So I think probably would have been, he wasn't particularly concerned about it. He just suggested it would be a good idea. So 5 minutes work. And the only other area of suggestion was that I've got this great big mount that I've put through here, goes down. So the back of the booster is mounted onto that. It reinforces the firewall, comes through here. My pedal gear swings off it. And then it comes up here, and my breakaway mounts for the Holden steering column are bolted onto there. He just suggested that I put some gusseting through this area here, basically from here down to there on each side, just to give it some extra rigidity. Now, he did say that it's only if it flexes under heavy braking. I've had this thing under heavy braking previous to pulling it apart, and I'm not concerned about it, but I'm going to do it anyway because it's a suggestion and it can't hurt. And again, it's another 5 minutes work. So I'm particularly pleased with where that's at. He did give me a list of the particular ADRs that apply to the month and year of the chassis that I've got. So I need to just do a little bit of research, because before July 73, for example, there was less ADRs than there was after July 73, and so on. So there's a bunch of changes from year to year, and they normally take place, it would appear, about July. So I've actually found out that my chassis, I thought it was a 1974 chassis, I've actually found out that it's a 1973 chassis. What I don't know is if it's before or after July. Why does that matter? Because if it's before July, there's a couple of things I don't need to do. And one in particular, if it's before July 73, I don't need to put burst-proof latches on, which would be great. So I need to find out the exact month of the chassis. I did do a search, previous registration search, and all I can find out is it's a 1973 chassis. So that's a step in the right direction. But not having to replace this and the section on the door with burst-proof latches will save me a lot of time. It's a job I've done before, but it's pretty fair bit of fiddling around. So to be able to use the existing latches would be great. So I'll have to go to the motor registry, I think, and try and find out if they can tell me the specific month, because I can't find it online on Service New South Wales. I'm in New South Wales. So hopefully I can find out good news there. But otherwise, we're putting burst-proof latches. There was nothing else that he was concerned about. And I won't go into what I will and won't have to do depending on the month and year of the chassis just yet until I find out what it is, because otherwise I'm just talking through my head, really. So just as a note, anything that I had done, so all of the work I've done here, the booster, the steering column, the pedal gear, the glass, I didn't know whether it needed approving or not. They didn't seem to be terribly concerned about this at all, but I wanted to have it all there. So I tried to assemble everything that I possibly could, as much as I could, to show my engineer exactly where I'm up to. Pointed out things like the fact that I've got a different steering box on there. He pointed out a couple of things that, you know, he thinks it's the HX motor on a HQ chassis. It's got EGR. That's fine, all good. Just pointing out exactly how it was working, and you'll notice I've got bits of masking tape on all sorts of things, because I wanted to point out what I'd done, what I hadn't done, what I intended to do, questions I had, what size wheel and tyre options I can use, etc., etc. It saves me from forgetting things. It saves us both time with me not having to scratch my head, and I get the questions asked and answered. He was completely happy with my seatbelt mount points, no problem whatsoever. Completely happy with everything. There was just those few little things. But, you know, some suggestions about how to do the demister vent. I've got my own ideas, but yeah, that's why he is engaged, to be able to assist me with those things. Gave me a recommendation for someone that might be able to rebuild the gauges that I'm going to use, etc. So he left here a couple of hours ago. I was doing some things. I'm fixing these gussets. Got to do that, then that's done. And then I can move along. I only put the steering column and everything back in so I could show him, so I can pull all that back out again, and I can do the gussets on that. And the ones on the chassis, they can wait until I've got the cab back on again, because it is actually going to be a little bit of a head scratcher, because it didn't surprise me when he said that. I wasn't sure. Didn't surprise me. But that was the only area on this bracketry that I could see that potentially there could be a concern about, because while I've got it triangulated out this way and through there, or gusseted and so on, there was not really anything other than my welds to stop it coming through here. So maybe overkill, may not be. Let's not find out the hard way. So little update on that. So I'm really happy with that. Well, if I had a list, that's one thing I could tick off it. So welded inside and out, ground down on the outside so they still fit in. Got them in a little bit of etch primer at the moment. That's all they'll have because they're indoors, so it really doesn't matter. So tick. I guess I probably should show you what they actually do. So this is inside the cab, and this is the front seat mount. So that little bracket that I just made is under there. The same as will happen on this side. So let's have a look at that one. Okay, so this is it. Sits up under there like that. And you see there's a bit of a fold here and then there. So it fits in there really snugly. And the idea is that I bolt the seat down and that goes there. Now I haven't made that captive. That was a decision so that I could have a little bit of movement in it when I'm putting the seat in. But what will happen is that that is captive under there. It's nice and strong. It can't pull forward, can't pull up, can't pull back. So it's good. And then I've got other captive nuts there. Previous video on that. And I'll show you on the seat where it goes. So under this cloth, we have our seat. So this is the underside. So what we have is this bolt here. So I just put a bolt in there, but so this bolt here just comes on. It's got a angle iron bracket that's welded onto this frame. That sits on top of that area I was just showing you. This comes down the back, 2 bolts in there, 1 bolt down through here, and then that captive nut that I just showed you keeps all that together. So that's the way that works. Very hot here today, so I've got the fan on, so you'll hear the noise. One of the things that my engineer wanted me to look at when he came to inspect was the steering column. He wanted to see some bracing through this area here. So obviously this goes under the dash. This is where the pedal hangs. This is where it comes down through the firewall. He was happy with the thing overall, no issues with it. But as I said, he just wanted to see some triangular bracing through there. So what I've done is just got a piece of scrap angle iron, and to keep it as simple as possible, I have shaped it so that it sits on top of my pedal box there and comes through. So I think it's neat, carries that plane through, and as I said, it triangulates this back to there. It was just a bit concerned, well, he wasn't concerned, he just suggested to avoid it so that when you slam your foot on the brake, if need be, that it doesn't want to bend through this area. So this should do the job just fine. So I'll clean all that up, clean up this plate here, clean up the sides, weld it in, and that rectification should be done. And there's still plenty of room in there for the pedal to be able to swing. So all is good. Oh, and I can still get to that plug. As always, I've tacked it together before welding it off finally, so that I could pop it back under the dash and see how it was. All good, time to finish welding. Just got a few tacks through there, all good, heaps of space. Let's weld it up. Righto, that's all burnt together. That should do the job just fine. So I'm going to give all that a clean up and throw a bit more paint on it. And there it is, all painted. Doesn't she look pretty? Nice bit of flat black on there. I also took the chance to paint the throttle pedal assembly, so gave it a coat as well. And while I was at it, I stripped the booster back to bare metal and I've given it a coat. They've all had etch primer and the other parts had flat black, and I'm giving this satin black just out of rattle bomb. It'll do, it'll look fine. Well, I don't know about you, but I think we're on a win here, because the body is coming up absolutely fantastic. I really couldn't be any happier with it. And the results of my first engineering inspection, like, you can't expect everything to be great. So the little things I had to fix, I'm more than happy with those. The chassis, sorting that out, that's going to be a little bit later, but that's okay. I've got ideas in my brain. It's just a matter of whether they're going to work or not. So the next thing here that you'll probably see is the demister vents, the whole demister setup. Here's a bit of a heads up. I've already finished it. So that's ready to go, and I'm going to start on those doors soon. I've said it a couple of times. I'm just waiting, hopefully today, to find out what month 1973 the chassis is from. Where's the chassis? The chassis is from. Because then that'll help me decide about my burst-proof latches. This is really difficult. My burst-proof latches. Hopefully I don't have to do them, because if I don't, I can just get straight into that. That will be in a future video as well. And then we've got to keep rolling. There's got to be plenty of other bodywork going on in the background. If you hadn't noticed, I got the bonnet stripped to bare metal, the doors stripped to bare metal, haven't started on those. So I'm quite a way in front of what you have just seen in this video. So come back. Check it out more. I'm going to Chrome Fest this coming weekend, which you will see about 3 weeks after the event, I would say. So If you like watching my car show videos, check that one out. Chrome Fest, Central Coast, The Entrance, New South Wales. Always a good show. Anyway, stay safe, and remember, your car, your truck, your project isn't going to build itself. Get off the lounge now that you finished watching my video. Go and pick up a spanner, an angle grinder or something, and make some progress, because it ain't going to build itself. But remember, do it safely. Till next time, catch you then.